From the beginning, we knew that one thing was true, that becoming is better than being. And that's precisely why we consider ourselves to be a work in progress. It means that you are never complete, and you always have that opportunity to become someone better.
It allows you the ability to be comfortable with making mistakes and accepting yourself for who you are.
We are work in progress, Wagwan and Anna.
What's up? I'm GK. Welcome to the show. So, welcome back, Anna. It's been a while. It's been a hiatus. You've been behind the scenes doing the busy work, but today you decided to join the big boys and talk about something you felt very passionate about. But before we get to that, let's talk about something completely different, okay?
Okay.
So, we have two political scientists here on this bench, Anna and myself. And then we have what I would think, I hope, is a political enthusiast here on my left. That is Chris M. And if you're not, don't say anything.
I won't.
And there's something that I have noticed of late. We're 4 months to the election. It's becoming more and more obvious, and I'm starting to get very frustrated by it. So the way I'm going to introduce it is I'm going to give a bit of a backdrop, and then we're going to get into the conversation, okay?
Okay.
So 2020, Mike Sonko was ousted and we got the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Was it 2020 or 2019? Thereabouts. The Nairobi Metropolitan Services went on to on a very significant beautification process of Nairobi. And I started to get a bit more proud of being on the Nairobi streets. Places were clean, posters were painted, lights were working, all these things were great. But then something has happened from our Kenyan people that is bringing that anger and distaste for the way we look at things a little back, and that is posters. Everybody is advertising themselves from here to Timbuktu, looking towards the election cycle of August 9th. And so they've stuck, what I heard was an adhesive of like unga and water. Then they put the poster and they stick it everywhere. And so you have poles, I hope we can put pictures of it, poles just filled with people's posters. So I wanted to ask you guys two questions. Number one, what do you guys think about those posters? And number two, what is the solution to having those posters completely eradicated from our memory? I will start with Anna.
I mean, okay, they don't look good.
That's terrible.
That's just the truth, especially like when you're seeing like a tree or an electric pole and it's just got a mix match of like different posters. It doesn't look good, especially like afterwards when you're trying to rip them off. And I don't think that's just flour and water, because those things,
they stick on.
They stick.
Months,
it's like it's got super glue. Like you rip them off and it really. So yeah, it doesn't look good. But then I wonder, like in terms of like maybe when you're looking at presidential elections, you can understand and tell a presidential candidate you can afford to do something better than just flyers. Yeah. But what about someone that's maybe an MCA position that doesn't have that money? What are their options? So I don't know. Though I feel like the sticking thing, maybe just hand them out. Like why stick them?
There's different ways to do it. Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
I have no problem with posters, yeah?
At all?
At all. Actually, there's a part of me that loves them, because you have candidate X, who's a blue candidate, candidate Y, who's a yellow candidate, another one is purple. It brings color, right? It brings color. So, and it's only for a short period of time. So between now and August, that's the only time we'll have these posters, right? You can make small sacrifices. Yeah. Because handing them out, it means for every one person, I have to give them one poster. But if you stick it, that one poster, a lot more people will see it. Why
stick 10 posters of that one candidate on the one poll?
Because
it's going to be masked by everyone else's, though.
That's what they're doing. So we also overload it, because if it's just one, I may have problems just seeing it, right? Yeah. So put many, I come and, but for me I have no, because it's the unga chapati, unga chapati.
Or papa's flour.
That one, I think. And if you go and scrape it, if maybe a tree, because of the gradients and all that, it's a bit hard. But if you stick it on a flat surface, removing it is very easy. I remember in the last general election, once you were done with the elections, and maybe this was a gimmick or not, I don't know, but the then governor, Sonko and Shebesh, the women rep, who had been elected the women, not this time, the other one.
2013.
They went round removing all their posters. So maybe the solution is we have it in law that after the elections are done, these candidates hire the same youth, then they go around and removing the posters. And you give a period of like maybe a month after the elections. If any of your poster is found there, maybe you find something small.
So, you know, when you said that solution, I kind of agree with the solution. Do you remember 2021 and 2020 when we had this COVID time and people were going out clubbing without against the law, and they were being caught at clubs at midnight when the curfew was 9 p.m.
Yes.
One of the things that people found very interesting was that they were made to go and slash grass. They were made to go and clean the streets, sweep, and do all those things. Now, to me, every MP, MCA, senator, governor, women rep who is found to have a poster anywhere, maybe should be said the same thing. That you go and you clean up, as you said. And you go, you clean up, you wash up the roads. You show you're also a person of service to your citizens. You've done all this damage to get yourself elected. Now that you've been elected, now every one of you has had a poster there. See, now we get to the job. We clean it up.
But knowing our politics, don't you think the enemies will go and just stick your, like if you defeated me, for example, I just take 100 posters of GK, post them somewhere, you're fined, or you go and sweep, and you're the sitting MCA or whatever.
But what's the harm of doing something that benefits society anyway? What's the harm?
Okay, but for me, the main thing is I have no problem with posters. We just need to have a personal sense of responsibility. If you are running for a seat and you know, I took my posters and I pasted them at place X.
Yeah.
Once that is done, be an adult and go and clean your mess. Up. Please. Yeah. That's the least I can do.
There should be like guidelines to where you can also stick your posters, because like sometimes you see these nice buildings, they've taken the time to come up with a nice compound wall and everything, and then the owners of that place have to go and uglify their own wall with no posters because no one is going to respect the fact that it's a private wall. Like, I mean, have some sense of respect for other people's boundaries. Ask them if you can, you know, post your posters.
And maybe we should introduce a few punitive measures. For example, when you go to is it Kenha road locations where they've built the roads, they put there no posters or receive a 85,000 shilling fine, or even prison time if you continue this process.
I don't agree with Anna when she says a private wall, they are uglifying it by writing no posters. No, you have to tell us, because that's an empty canvas, right?
No, but it's a private wall. It's not a public thing.
Let me give you an example. If you go into any government office, you know corruption is illegal. Yes. You're not permitted to do corruption.
Yes.
But they still take their time to put a poster telling you this is a corruption-free zone. Yeah, it does nothing wrong by just reinforcing the message and telling people, please, no posters here. And if you go ahead and defy that, we'll now get a fine or imprisonment or whatever. So if you don't want posters on your wall, just tell people no posters.
But have you seen the world where there's no posters and there's that one person who's still gone and stuck their poster there just out of spite?
You know, so I have two concluding points to this discussion. The first point is about I don't like comparing, but I'm going to compare right now.
Go ahead.
I was in Rwanda. I had the opportunity to go to Rwanda during a time of elections. And by the way, the entire time I was there, which was about a week, I had no idea the election period was then until when I was leaving. When guys were like, oh yeah, it's actually a bit tense. Elections are about to happen. I never saw posters. I never saw any of those big advertisements. If I saw advertisements, they were on billboards or on very nice things. The streets were very clean. And that's something I found very nice, because elections come and go once they happen on one day. Yes, their ramifications are very big, but you can't leave this, you can't create damage that will cost more than one day's work to fix because of your own interest. And my second point, because Christine, I see you're burning to respond to that. My second point is about innovative ways to sell yourself. It is word of mouth and street campaigning and grassroots campaigning that is the most effective. But I'm seeing new ways people are putting posters. They're getting a pole, and then they're connecting like a small canvas on the side of the pole that is not a poster that's sticking to the pole. And they're advertising themselves on that. That may cost them a little more money, but it is a better way. So once that thing is it's just removed, it's done.
My issue with that is, and we were discussing this earlier, is the number, because of our democracy, the democratic space is open in our country.
Yes.
You have places where in a certain ward, you'll have X number of MCA. In that ward, an MP still has to advertise himself there.
Yeah.
A senator, a women rep, and the president and the governor, right? So how sustainable is that model in our wards when you...
I remember we talked about a ward that had 70 people.
70 aspirants,
yeah.
And see the 70 aspirants, let's cut it down after nomination and say that we have 20. So 20 that are running. Then you have 10 MPs, 10 this, it's not sustainable. So in our country right now, until we get there, we have to use the mode that is working. And also working is the posters. Let's just improve on what we have right now before we can morph into something else that is better. And right now what works is posters. Let's just work with the posters.
Hey, okay, so it's on that point that we're going to shift the conversation to what Anna really wants to talk about today. And that's about, we're going to call it health versus crime, health or crime. And it has to do with a new law that was passed, law on drugs that was passed by the government that extended and introduced new offenses, such as the publication of information that aids in the consumption of these drug substances and provides more tools to law enforcement. So it's caused a bit of a debate, not really a backlash, but a debate about what are the best ways to deal with substance use and substance abuse, okay, in the country. So that's what I'm going to ask you. Number one, what you think about, because these laws can be considered to be a little bit punitive. They're preventative. We do this to push people to think about the high risk in the situation. So I wanted to ask both of you what you think about it. Do you think, number one, do you think Kenya has a substance abuse problem? Do we have an epidemic problem? And these are drugs like marijuana, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, all of them. Do you, number one, think we have a substance abuse problem? Number two, do you believe punitive measures are the most successful way to deal with them? And what would be your solution? So let's start. So I'll start with you, Anna. Give me your introductory remarks, and then we'll go from there.
To answer a question.
Yes, my many questions.
Okay, yeah, I think there is a problem happening. I'd say particularly with our youth these days. But I think the way we're going about it is completely in the wrong direction. To clarify on the act, it's called the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Control Act. It's an amendment from I think the 90s. But okay, so the main intention, which is, okay, I understand, is to target drug traffickers and narcotic smugglers, as they put it. Which, fine, okay, you're going after the big people, but we both know that's not going to happen. What's crazy and what's got me wild up is listen to exactly what they've changed, okay? So, if you're caught with, what is it, less than 1 gram, right?
1 gram.
Less than 1 gram of, and they don't clarify, I guess any of the drugs. So it could be weed or it could be cocaine. Two very, very different things, right? Less than 1 gram, you're fined to not less than 20 million and imprisonment for a term of not less than 20 years. So let's say you've bought 1 gram of marijuana. That's probably costing you, what, a couple sock? Like 200-300 bob?
I have no
really?
idea.
So you buy something for 200-300 bob and you're going to pay a 20 million fine if you're doing cocaine or prison for 20 years. If it's cocaine, 1 gram is 5K. Is it still worth 20 million? It just, like, imagine it's your first time trying drugs and then you're fined with 20.
That's what they're trying to stop you from doing.
Then, okay, what's the other one? Between 1 and 100 grams, 30 million or 30 years, or both.
Okay.
More than 100 grams, and I guess this is more now for your drug traffickers.
The people dealing.
It will be not less than 50 million or 3 times the market value, which is why that's something else.
3 times the market value of the drug.
Of the drug. So if you have, let's say, 500 grams of cocaine,
which is worth like 1.5 million.
whatever the math
like
is,
10
MC
million.
squared will do it for us later.
Yeah, MC squared.
Like, that's insane. Or you get a life imprisonment, or you get both, so you'll be fined. It's crazy fines. That's the problem. It's the measures that they're taking are so excessive. But I'll get back into that. I'll let Chris M talk a bit first.
When Anna was explaining, she asked a question that I kind of excited me for a second. She said, weed is like 100 and the fine is like 20 million. Is that worth it? That's a good question. Is it worth it? Do you want to go and buy that drug for that amount, knowing the penalty? Is it worth it?
And that's the exact point of the
law. They have to make it so punitive for you to sit down and ask yourself, okay, if I do this, this is the punishment. Am I willing to trade in this for this? So this law, what it has done, I'm falling in love with the law, Bana, because it's making people question things. Even people who want to get into it, they'll start questioning.
Yeah.
No.
Immediately.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, this is less than a gram, but the punishment, let me not do it, right? And that's the main purpose of the law. So as far as I'm concerned, whoever brought this amendment to Parliament, thank you to the President for sending it into law again. Thank you. And this will go a long way to saving the youth. That's my introductory remarks.
So, okay. Now, I don't want you guys to call me a fence sitter in this situation.
Okay.
But I'm really torn between both sides of the argument. On one side, I totally agree that with you, Chris M, that punitive measures are there to make you calculate the risk. If I'm going to get into this venture, whether it is consuming of the drug or the selling of the drug, I have to take into account the risk. It's not something, for many people, 20 million, your family, your chama, your SACCO, everyone put together.
Your MCA.
Cannot, your MCA, your MP, your senator, they cannot raise 20 million to get you out of jail. So you're thinking about what would it cost. Number one, it'll cost me, but it'll also cost my community.
Yes.
Because they will have to come together to try and find a way to get me out of it.
Yes.
So I totally agree with punitive measures. However, data would suggest that we are thinking in a way that is utopian. Okay. That's how it works. That this way, we just say that these are the consequences, and people will be like, the consequences are so much, I'm not going to touch this thing at all. Okay. But the facts suggest differently. And I'll give you two suggestions. Number one, do you guys ever hear of the Prohibition?
Yes.
The Prohibition was a period in the 1920s in America when they were going through the quote-unquote roaring 20s.
Yes.
And they enjoyed their drink. And so at a point, the moral compass of the country decided that it was time to put an end to it. And what they did is they said, we're going to make these drinks completely illegal and put up punitive measures to stop them.
Yes.
What it did was, number one, lose the government taxes, heavy taxes. Number two, it moved the drug trafficking and the whatever underground. So it became harder for you to catch these people, and it became much more instilled in the population. So that is number one. Number two, have you guys heard of the United Nations Systems Coordination Task Team? Have you heard of that?
Just heard of it right now.
Well, they describe punitive drug policies as ineffective in reducing drug trafficking or in addressing non-medical drug use. It goes on to say that such approaches, quote unquote, undermine the human rights and well-beings of persons who use drugs as well as of their families and communities, end quote.
Okay.
So what do you think of that?
I'll say that's a lot of hogwash. With all due respect. And I'll say it this way, right? You're saying punitive action doesn't yield results, right? And maybe yes, maybe no. Right now we know if you commit robbery with violence, the punishment is capital punishment, right? Yes. Does it stop people from doing robbery with violence?
Maybe it stops a few people from commencing.
Not everyone. So people are still doing that, right?
Yeah.
It may seem like a false equivalence, but by the government lying down and saying it won't work, we're saying if you steal, because we have prison system, we have laws against that, but people still commit crimes. We have traffic laws, but people still flaunt them, right? The government is not supposed to give in and say, it won't work. If it stops 5 people from engaging into that, that's
successful.
That's success. If there's someone who was contemplating and is like, let me not do it, that is success. Because the world is full of laws and people still break laws every day. That is not grounds to say, do away with such and such a law. I don't think that's the right approach.
Anna, what do you think?
Okay, I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay, let's say we go by your thing, right?
Yes.
Whatever measures we've had in place, the current solution is just to make them
more punitive.
Yes. That's not working. Clearly, it's not working to have these kinds of punishments happen, right?
Yeah.
So we already know guys are going to continue to do drugs no matter what you say. And the more you say don't do drugs, the more the person is going to want to do them. We know that. That's just human nature.
I think it's even used in a people use it in a saying for the Bible that the more forbidden the fruit, the tastier it gets.
Okay. So it's not going to stop. All you're doing is giving people more reason to want to try something, especially when you're young, right? Now, let me give you an example, right? Between 2007 and 2019, there were over like 2,500 cases that were filed at the High Court for people convicted of, having drugs, being caught in possession, maybe smuggling, all that, whatever reason. All these cases. those 2,500 cases were successfully appealed by these people. Oh. So these guys, fine, they got caught, whatever the punishment was. They went to court, appealed it, and they're walking free.
Okay.
So our justice system is clearly not doing whatever it needs to do. Maybe they're bribing, maybe they're using connections. So are these same people now going to continue in that same method? When there's a higher risk,
The judicial system,
they're going to put more money into making sure they come out of that court without a conviction.
Okay.
So our system isn't working. So instead of saying let's tighten the measures, why don't we ask, can we try a completely different method and see if it works? If it doesn't,
then we
can always go back, right? It's not like things are set in stone. And we can look at countries like Portugal. Portugal, I think, was one of the first countries in the world.
Basically everything.
They decriminalized, not legalized,
decriminalized
decriminalized the use of
legalized.
all drugs. All drugs. So cocaine, meth, heroin, whatever. They're doing so well. Okay, so the cost that the government is spending on trying to catch drug users, not criminals. They're still catching criminals. Not criminals, the traffickers. They're still going after them because it's still illegal, right? But it's not illegal for you to be using drugs. It's not, there's decriminalization and there's legalization. I'm posing decriminalization because that one takes us into the public health aspect of one, if you're battling with a drug problem, you can't go seek help in a country where you're told
The
you
measures are
consumed
very
how
high.
many grams? 50, so you're going to be scared. As a youth, you're going to be even more scared to maybe go to your parents or your support systems
Seek help.
when you're doing something that's completely and so heavily illegal. Versus if it's decriminalized, you're allowed to make mistakes and you're allowed to seek help. So you'll be like, okay, I've been using cocaine, I'm suddenly addicted. I don't feel the worry of going to my community members and saying I'm struggling. And that's what we're seeing in countries like Portugal, Netherlands, there's a whole bunch of other countries.
So that leads me to ask you the question, and be the final question we have because of considering time. And that question is, should we, both of you, should we be considering drug use and abuse as crime or health crisis?
Health crisis.
Chris,
There's a law against the drugs. It's a crime. Guys, it may
What
sound
if we
bad.
removed it?
Now, that one, I'll pose it to you and your legislator, right?
Okay.
Tell your MP to go and decriminalize it. Me, I have no problem. I follow the law right now, right? I have issues with alcohol, right? But the community as a whole have decided that let's take alcohol,
acceptable.
right? So if our MPs, there's an MP right now, I think a senator and a presidential aspirant, who want to decriminalize marijuana, right?
Yeah.
If they get in and they are able to,
then it's okay.
that's okay. But if there's one thing I learned from the BBI ruling thing, whatever, is that popular opinion. You guys, if the drug users and the community and the health benefits, all that nonsense, if you're that many, come together, propose an amendment, right? Let it become a law in our country. And then that way, I'll back off. If you want to smoke, smoke. But the issue of kids will take it anyway, that's a defeatist mentality, right?
It's not. It's saying, it's being realistic and saying your method isn't working, and just to put tighter rules against it. It's like telling a kid, okay, if you sneak out of the house, we'll ground you for 1 week. Now the kid still sneaks out. So you say, okay, you know what? 1 month this time. I mean, see, they're still going to.
Okay, I suggest this. That's what I suggest. Let's all go to community maximum prison, And we're like, oh, because you're a repeat offender, we love you. Just come and talk to us because we don't want to punish you every time. Because we jail you for 2 years, you go out, commit another crime, and come back. Because we love you. We love you. We don't want to punish you. The system is not working. Just go out. No, the government will. You can commit a crime 50 times. They'll not be tired. Go back to jail. Go back to jail. In America, they have 3 strikes and you're out.
The street strike.
Introduce that also. You're smoking weed 1 gram. Go in. After the 3rd strike, go in for life. I have no pity for you. If you're breaking the law, you're breaking the law. Follow the law, however unfair it is, until the law changes. If it doesn't change, too bad for you.
Okay, so Anna and Chrisam will give you each one more response because we're running out of time. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Okay? Go
Okay. Do certain crimes justify, let's say we stick to it, right?
Yes.
There's cases like, okay, there's one person, he was caught trafficking some weed. It was worth 23K.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So let's say he sold it all, he only made his 23K. He's now in prison for life.
Yes.
is that even a fair way to judge the crime? Like, even just if it's too punitive, it's too insane. Another woman was jailed for 30 years for selling 2K worth of weed. 2K, and you're in jail for 30 years.
2,000 shillings.
2,000 shillings. That's what she made.
Let me ask you.
Without an option of a fine. She wasn't even allowed to make her case.
We are colleagues here, right? We have an altercation, and because I'm heated, I slap you, right? And then my boss is like, hey, I will not tolerate that. You're fired.
Yeah.
I lose my livelihood. Is that fair?
No.
But I lose my job, right? That's the world you live in right now. You lose your job.
I don't know.
If you fight...
You can try slapping
This
to
is
see how it goes down.
No, I don't lose my job. Anywhere in the world, I think, if you fight with a colleague, those are grounds for you to be dismissed.
Yes.
Whether it's fair or not, whether you have 50 dependents or not. Your boss will not care. Okay, he might care, but you'll be fired. It's not fair. The world you're living in is not a fair world.
It's not a fair world, and so that's it. So we'll give unfair.
So my question is this:
things.
why are we being so considerate to drug users and not people who went and stole because they had no other option?
Because with drugs, you're also not considering what's putting them into drugs. Poverty is putting you into drugs.
That's the same for
You're
stealing.
dealing with drugs because yes, but we'll continue. So, like, you'll have mental health problems.
Stealing.
You end up going into drugs, right? So, and even stealing, right? If we have a problem where this crime is on the rise because of poverty, instead of continuing to put tight measures, why aren't we asking, instead of let's just slapping fines on top of people, can we actually deal with poverty? Can we put our energy, our how much? Our 1.5 billion that goes into the national communication and surveillance system for drugs and sexual assault. Can we put some of that money into finding ways to deal with poverty, and finding ways to deal with mental health, into giving people actual solutions versus just throwing more money to cops who are taking bribes anyways, and we know that's how it's going to end up.
Me, I'm with you on that one. We can deal with poverty and mental health.
I think we are dealing
but at that time,
we are dealing with
as you're dealing with that,
at a level we've never seen before.
let the guys be in jail as you're dealing with it. That's my thing.
So,
prisons
okay,
are
so
full.
we're gonna conclude the conversation there. This is a philosophical question that is going around the world. The question of how to deal with abuse and use of drugs. So it's not like we have the answers. These are just our ways of looking at it in our lens.
But you have a law.
But we have the law. Yes, Chris. So we're going to do this. We're going to conclude very quickly by those of us who have recommendations, giving recommendations to people of stuff to watch, to read, to expand your horizon, and to learn different arguments that you may agree with or you may not agree with. So, Anna, what is your recommendation?
I'll go really quick. 2 on the conversation. If you're looking for something more fictional, Top Boy. And then if you're looking for something more realistic, both on Netflix, Dope. It's a series about drugs. They're both on drugs. Documentary, series on enlighten your world.
Okay, Chris?
For me, it's something to read. It's called
The law.
the Narcotics, Drugs, and Psychotropic Substance Act. Educate yourself on that law.
How would we expect anything different?
Educate yourself on that law. Don't be caught on the wrong side of the law. And be safe. Say no to drugs.
Okay, so mine are 3. Number 1, the business of drugs. I think that's a very interesting thing to look at. It's very interesting to see how the role that Kenya and Mombasa Port play in the drugs thing, the role that Afghanistan and all the countries, America, play in the drug trade. Number 2, how to be a tyrant. I will always suggest this movie, this series. It's also on Netflix to everyone. Just watch it. It's just brilliant. And then the last one is, this guy does something called Last Week Tonight, something like that, John Oliver. He did a show on data brokers. And for those of us who are giving our data all the time, and this is a period of very hyper data sensitivity, I think it'd be an interesting watch. So thank you.
It's on YouTube, right?
It's on YouTube, yes. So thank you so much for watching Work in Progress. We will be here with you like we always are next time.